They were expecting this certain schedule, and that's the schedule it's going to be, and that frees up about 500 million roughly. So you have about it's actually funny. The marijuana raises 420 million. I think Winnie Brinks came up with that number, but it's 420 million for the marijuana if it's at a 24% wholesale tax. And then the decoupling, it roughly is about 500 million a year, okay? So what we do is we dedicate the marijuana revenue to roads from the wholesale tax. We, as the decoupling, the way I'd explain it is this way. Our plan the whole time was to dedicate corporate income tax to roads, okay? What we're achieving here is dedicating corporate income tax for roads. By decoupling, you see more corporate income tax available, and we're dedicating that to roads. And you're going to continue to see over time more corporate income tax going to roads. And that's been what we've been trying to achieve this whole time. And then I would just describe, finally, this has been a goal of the House Republicans ever since Jace Bolger was Speaker. I mean, many years, over 10 years, a goal of the House Republicans was to dedicate all of the money collected at the pump to roads. When I ran against a liberal guy, Dave Maturin, and I beat him in the primary by over 30 points, I ran on, we need to fix the roads, and we need to dedicate all of the money collected at the pump to roads, and I won by 30 points. Well, we finally are doing it here. We're finally delivering on that message that the Republicans said we were going to do. We're dedicating all of the money to the pump to roads. All the money that is collected at the pump goes to roads, and we're going to do that. So I think that's really important, and that roughly is how it works. And you'll get more details, but any other questions? And it's okay if there aren't questions. Yeah.
With the budget that you first proposed being much lower than the Senate budget and governor's budget because of all the wastewater use to be cut out, will we see those cuts in the final budget, or will we see some of them, all of them, none of them?
Yeah. So I expect this final budget to look more like the House Republican budget than the other budgets. And I'll explain it this way. It eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse in state government. Not as much of the waste, fraud, and abuse as the Republicans did. You remember in our budget, we found $5 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse. In this case, you're going to see basically equal waste, fraud, and abuse eliminated in the budget to the revenue that was raised. And that was important to me. It has to be one-to-one. We're not going to raise unless you cut waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not doing it. There's too much waste, fraud, and abuse in this budget. And as we're moving forward on this, you're going to see a lot of those ghost employees go away, thousands of ghost employees. And I think you're going to see quite a bit of waste, fraud, and abuse go away in this budget. I'd explain it this way. The reason this budget will likely be smaller than last year's budget is because you're not going to be spending the kind of one-time pork money that they've spent in the past. And the other reason it'll be smaller is because you're only dedicating $1.5 billion to roads. We're House Republicans. We started out wanting to do $3.4 billion to roads. This budget will be smaller for those two reasons, if that makes sense. There's not as much money going to roads as what Republicans wanted to do. But there's only so much waste, fraud, and abuse that Democrats are willing to cut. I mean, what has the holdup been all these weeks is trying to get Democrats to admit there's waste, fraud, and abuse in the budget and cut it. That's pretty hard to do. So once we got them to see the waste, fraud, and abuse, and this is something I've been showing some of the Democrats and showing them and convincing them, going through the line items and talking to their fiscal agencies, is like, oh, you're right, there is waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, so now that we've established the waste, fraud, and abuse, when you cut the waste, fraud, and abuse, I'll give you some revenue, but we're dedicating it all to roads. We have to fix our local roads. we can't use this money to create more waste, fraud, and abuse in government. And if we can deliver a smaller general fund budget than last year, we can deliver a smaller budget than last year, and we can fix our local roads. We can put budget transparency forward for the first time, and no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security for our working people to match President Trump's policy at the federal level. Michigan workers under this agreement will have no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security on their state taxes as well. This is a great win for Michigan workers, and it's also finally starting to achieve some value for your dollars in the budget. Some questions. Jordan.
Speaker Hall, so returning to the marijuana portion of things for the road funding, already we're hearing members in the marijuana industry saying that, one, the market is oversaturated, so your tax returns are going to be diminished if you do end up taxing this at the 24% wholesale tax rate, but also that marijuana sales are going to suffer because we'll have the highest, I believe it says the highest taxable rate in the Midwest. How would you respond to those comments from those individuals?
So Governor Whitmer publicly stated she wanted a 32% wholesale tax, and I was able to negotiate that down. What is it, 25% to a 24%? All right. 24% to a 24% wholesale tax, right? What I'm saying is she proposed 32 and I knocked it down. I think it was 25% and it's a 24% tax. So I'm saying it confusing. But what I'm saying is she proposed a 32% tax and the Republicans said, we'll do 24. We reduced the tax she was proposing. And I would say that it was for that reason, right? We thought the 32% tax that the Democrats were proposing on marijuana on the wholesale value was too much. And we were concerned about how that might affect the industry, right? We want to have an industry. The voters have said it's legal. We have a regulatory framework, right? I mean, this employs people. It's an industry in Michigan. We thought 32% that the governor wanted to do was too high, so we reduced it to 24%. But ultimately, we wanted to dedicate the money to roads. I know that Michigan has among the lowest marijuana prices in the country. We were doing some rough math on this, and I'm told it's about $350 million a year that Michigan collects on the excise tax, okay? This would collect another $450 million roughly, let's say. It's 420. So you'd figure it's about maybe about doubling the tax a little bit. We could do this with 56 votes if we did it as a wholesale tax versus, I don't know, we should count it up. We probably had enough votes to change the whole law and do it as another excise tax, but I don't think Winnie Brinks will be able to do that. So we had to do it this way with the lower threshold to do a wholesale tax. But we ran some other states, and we actually think this is lower than a lot of other states because it's a wholesale tax, and the value of a product is much lower at wholesale than it is at the retail value. But we shared their concerns, and that's why we cut it to 24 from the governor's proposal at 32. That won't be a good TV clip, but hopefully if you guys listen to that, it's a very thorough answer. Here, Elena.
You mentioned that this was going to be a smaller budget overall. Can you give us any idea how much smaller it will be than last year's, and any insight on what the schooling fund looks like in terms of per pupil funding?
Yeah. So we're working out some of the details amongst our subcommittees and the members. I mean, if you read the release, it does talk about how there's a lot of work to be done in the details, but you got to have this framework. We did the framework, we unlocked it, and now they're going to do a sprint forward to get this thing done on time. So we'll have more to say later about the per pupil number. And what was the rest of your question? Yeah, the top line. So the top line isn't 100% confirmed yet, but I have enough information on what we're doing to know it's going to be smaller than last year. I'll just say that. I don't want to overpromise to you, Elena. Get the Gonger readers excited and then let them down. But it's going to be smaller than last year. You know, the other ones aren't out here doing a press conference, so I don't want to say anything that screws up the deal we just announced. Beth, hey, by the way, great job, Beth, on your award. I know you don't like the recognition, but you know, you work with some people that are politicians, and you're just a very good reporter. So it's harder to get noticed when you're not a politician. But great job on your award. You deserve that. So, and by the way, I don't know if we would have got budget transparency done. The Democrats don't want budget transparency. We might not have got budget transparency done if it weren't for Beth's reporting. So.
Be seen if you haven't passed 20 years.
Well, we have an agreement that says, a signed agreement saying that we're gonna do it, so we'll see.
With the gas tax shift, have you guys decided how you're gonna make schools whole for the tax revenue that they would usually receive through the sales tax there?
Yeah, so it's the intent to make the schools whole. Yeah. It's to make the schools whole. Yep, so. Remember, I mean, I said the other ones aren't up here, so I don't know. I don't know everything that we're allowed to say, but I'll just say we make the schools whole as part of the plan, and I would say that you know, in order to make the schools whole, right, it's coming from the general fund. Hopefully, am I allowed to say that, Gideon? Okay, he gave me the thumbs up. All right. It's so hard, you know, I love telling you guys everything, but the other ones are not as transparent, and so I have to limit some of these statements. Although the governor doesn't mind. Any other questions? Okay, well, do you guys, yeah, go ahead, David. Oh, wonderful.
Is there anything with all the discussions, was there any agreement reached on economic development incentives? I mean, it sounds like SOAR is not going to continue on, but the governor has said there should be some replacement.
I think that right now what we have is like, you know, you may see some of these things lapse a little bit, and we'll see. But I think that, you know, we've shown a lot, right? They have billions and billions of dollars of slush funds in government. I mean, we found $6 billion of slush funds caused by the waste, fraud, and abuse in government, many from the ghost employees. And so the departments, they have, you know, thousands of ghost employees. And by the way, they're even more than I thought when I'm really looking through. We said there was 4,300. There are more ghost employees than that. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll get all of the ghost employees, but we're learning where they are, and there's more. We're going to eliminate a lot of the ghost employees, thousands of them. But as we're working to eliminate the ghost employees and start, I would say, lapsing some of the slush funds, you could see some of those SOAR dollars lapse because the slush funds are going to be drained, right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to drain some of the slush funds because we need to get this waste, fraud, and abuse out of government. Yeah, Beth.
I just want to, I don't know if I'm reading into this a little too much, but the statement that you guys sent out said you reached a deal to pass a budget before October 1st. What did you agree? Like, did you only agree you're going to make the deadline, or like what portions of the budget did you agree on?
Well, I think I'm talking about what I can, right? So what we agreed to is a framework that includes no tax on tips, overtime, Social Security, includes eliminating ghost employees, includes eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse from government, many of these elements that are talking about in the release, right? So we agreed to that. We also agreed to some of these other votes, like dedicating 1.5 up to $1.8 billion to roads over the next 5 years. So we agreed to that too. And we agreed to how we're going to do it with the dedicating all of the money collected at pump to roads, this 24% marijuana wholesale tax, you know, all of that we agreed to. So you have to agree to these framework pieces in a budget in order to get it done. And that's what we did. So we've laid this foundation. The subcommittees still have some work to do, and I and Ann Bolin will personally review all of that work and sign off on it. But, you know, I think it's important, right? I mean, we've all committed to getting this done on time. We've all agreed to the major components that have been holding up this process. And now we've got to sprint to the finish line to get this done for the people of Michigan on time that all of us, even Winnie Brinks, is committed to. Yeah, Kyle.
To be clear, Speaker, you don't have target numbers, right?
So I would say that we've had a lot of conversations about that, and we're still ironing some things out, but that was not part of the release. Yeah, Rick, sorry. If you were holding up your hand earlier, there's this big light and I didn't see you, so I apologize. You like how I was sitting right next to that picture of President Trump and I? That looks great. So, yeah. That might be why the light's there, to illuminate it. I'm just kidding.
It's a mechanics one. So just time-wise, how is this supposed to work? We're going to see budget committees, conference committees meeting when to get what to the floor by.
Yeah. So the way I would explain this, and not all of these items have been fully hashed out, I would just say that you know, all of the budget implementation bills needed are in the other chamber. You can see, you know, our roads plan passed the House months ago. The Democrats have been sitting on it. They have every piece they need there to do budget implementation. The 3 bills today were needed for the budget, and with the 5-day rule, they had to move today. You know, we haven't discussed conference committees. You know, we just haven't discussed that. So I think, you know, we haven't agreed to the exact details of how you would get this thing through. I would expect that you may see the budget, you know, put into a big bill and moved through one of the chambers and into the other. That's my guess, but we haven't formalized that yet.
So if you were to do that, it would probably have to be like one for the general fund and one for the school aid fund.
That could be. Yeah, we haven't agreed to that, but those are the kind of conversations you have to have, right? Is those kind of things. So we're going to have to work through how that looks with the earmark disclosure. And I'll just say, if there are no earmarks, that's fine with me. But if there are earmarks, we've agreed to have disclosure. So we'll see how that works.
What do you mean by disclosure? Like, does that mean like some that didn't meet the April deadline for submission will get into the final budget?
We've not agreed to that. So there's still details to be worked out on the disclosure. But the key is that everyone has agreed, if we're going to have earmarks, they must be disclosed under a process that Ann Bolin and I agree to. And it's okay if there are no earmarks, but having that budget transparency is going to be critical in this as we move forward. And we got that agreement. And that's one of the things that was holding up this deal, right? Is, you know, forcing budget transparency is not easy. I'll just say that. And, you know, if the Democrats, I'm just saying the Democrats wanted to make more cuts to waste, fraud, and abuse, you know, we would have been willing to meet them 1-to-1, right? I just want to be clear. The reason this roads deal is 1.5 is because the 1.5 to 1.8 is because the Democrats did not want to cut more waste, fraud, and abuse to government. And I wasn't ever going to agree to a deal that went above 1-to-1. Has to be 1-to-1, and all the money must be dedicated to roads. That's how you get in the places that we're talking. So any other questions? All right. Well, hopefully we gave you something to write about, and I'll see you guys all here, hopefully Tuesday. Wouldn't that be fun? Tuesday? That'd be good. So hopefully we don't go this late, but you never know. All right.